The Java Persistence API is a Java programming language application programming interface specification that describes the management of relational data in applications using Java Platform, Standard Edition and Java Platform, Enterprise Edition. The Java Persistence API originated as part of the work of the JS 220 expert group of the Java Community Process. JPA 2.0 was the work of the JS 317 expert group. Persistence in this context covers three areas: the API itself, defined in the JAVAX persistence package, the Java persistence query language, object relational metadata. History. The final release date of the JPA 1.0 specification was May 11, 2006 as part of Java Community Process JS 220. The JPA 2.0 specification was released December 10, 2009. The JPA 2.1 specification was released April 22, 2013. Entities. A persistence entity is a lightweight Java class whose state is typically persisted to a table in a relational database. Instances of such an entity correspond to individual rows in the table. Entities typically have relationships with other entities, and these relationships are expressed through object relational metadata. Object relational metadata can be specified directly in the entity class file by using annotations, or in a separate XML descriptor file distributed with the application. The Java Persistence Query Language. The Java Persistence Query Language makes queries against entities stored in a relational database. Queries resemble SQL queries in syntax, but operate against entity objects rather than directly with database tables. Motivation. Prior to the introduction of EJB 3.0 specification, many enterprise Java developers used lightweight persistent objects, provided by either persistence frameworks or data access objects instead of entity beans. This is due to the fact that entity beans, in previous EJB specifications, called for too much complicated code and heavy resource footprint, and they could be used only in Java EE application servers because of interconnections and dependencies in the source code between beans and DAO objects or persistence framework. Thus, many of the features originally presented in third-party persistence frameworks were incorporated into the Java Persistence API, and, as of 2006, projects like Hibernate and Top-Link Essentials have become themselves implementations of the Java Persistence API specification. Related technologies. Enterprise Java Beans. The EJB 3.0 specification included a definition of the Java Persistence API. However, end users do not need an EJB container or a Java EE application server in order to run applications that use this Persistence API. Future versions of the Java Persistence API will be defined in a separate JSAT specification rather than in the EJB JSR specification. The Java Persistence API replaces the persistence solution of EJB 2.0 CMP. Java Data Objects API. The Java Persistence API was developed in part to unify the Java Data Objects API, and the EJB 2.0 Container Managed Persistence API. As of 2009, most products supporting each of those APIs support the Java Persistence API. The Java Persistence API specifies persistence only for relational database management systems. That is, JPA focuses on object relational mapping. Refer to JPA 2 Specs Section 1 Introduction for clarification of the role of JPA, which states very clearly the technical objective of this work is to provide an object relational mapping facility for the Java application developer using a Java domain model to manage a relational database. The Java Data Objects specification supports ORM, as well as persistence to other types of database models, for example flat file databases and NoSQL databases, including document databases, graph databases, as well as literally any other conceivable data store. Service Data Object API. The designers of the Java Persistence API aim to provide for relational persistence, with many of the key areas taken from object relational mapping tools such as Hibernate and Top-Link. Java Persistence API improved on and replaced EJB 2.0, evidenced by its inclusion in EJB 3.0. The Service Data Objects API has a very different objective to the Java Persistence API and is considered complementary. The SDO API is designed for service-oriented architectures, multiple data formats rather than only relational data, and multiple programming languages. The Java Community Process manages the Java version of the SDO API. The C++ version of the SDO API is managed via Oasis, Hibernate. Hibernate provides an open-source object relational mapping framework for Java. Versions 3.2 and later provide an implementation for the Java Persistence API. Gavin King founded the Hibernate project. He represented JBOSS on JSA 220, the JCP expert group charged with developing JPA. This led to ongoing controversy and speculation surrounding the relationship between JPA and Hibernate. Sun Microsystems has stated that ideas come from several frameworks, including Hibernate and Java Data Objects. JPA 2.0 Development of a new version of JPA 2.0 was started in July 2007 in the Java Community Process as JSA 317. JPA 2.0 was approved as final on December 10, 2009. The focus of JPA 2.0 was to address features that were present in some of the popular ORM vendors but could not gain consensus approval for JPA 1.0. Main features included were expanded object relational mapping functionality, support for collections of embedded objects, linked in the ORM with a many-to-one relationship, ordered lists, combinations of access types. A criteria query API, standardization of query hints, standardization of additional metadata to support DDL generation, support for validation, shared object cache support. Vendors supporting JPA 2.0, BAT2 JPA, Data Nucleus, Eclipse Link, JBOSS with Hibernate, Kundera, ObjectDB, OpenJPA, IBM, for WebSphere Application Server, Versant Corporation JPA, JPA 2.1. Development of a new version of JPA 2.1 was started in July 2011 as JSA 338. JPA 2.1 was approved as final on May 22, 2013. Main features included were converters, allowing custom code conversions between database and object types. Criteria update delete, allows bulk updates and deletes through the criteria API. Stored procedures, allows queries to be defined for database stored procedures. Schema generation, entity graphs, allow partial or specified fetching or merging of objects. JPQL criteria enhancements, arithmetic subqueries, generic database functions, join ON clause, treat option. Vendors supporting JPA 2.1, Data Nucleus, Eclipse Link, Hibernate, see also, JDBC, XQJ, JPQL, MyBatis, Pure Query, OpenJava, SAP NetWeaver Application Server, JOPS, .NET Persistence API, References. External links, General Info, JCP Persistence page, Glassfish's Persistence page, documentation for the final version of the EJB3 spec, JPA Java Persistence API, tutorials, Persistence in the Java EE5 tutorial, Java EE6 Persistence API tutorial, Java EE7 Persistence API tutorial, Java EE6 Persistence API JavaDoc, Java EE7 Persistence API JavaDoc, Hibernate Entity Manager User Guide, Hibernate JavaDoc, org Hibernate EJB, Eclipse Link JPA tutorials for application servers, Data Nucleus JPA tutorial for RDBMS, Versant JPA Getting Started tutorial, JPA tutorial using OpenJPA as implementation.